Sponsored by Industrial Metal Supply on the Sports Leader. Check the live stream on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
We are back. What's going on, folks? Kerry Crowley hanging out with you here on Sports Phone KNBR this evening. A reminder that this show is presented by Industrial Metal Supply, online at industrialmetalsupply.com. It's metal made easy. Folks, not the storybook ending that anyone was hoping for down in Birmingham at Rickwood Field. What a night, what a production it was, honoring Willie Mays and honoring the Negro Leagues players who were in attendance tonight, and of course the legacies of the players who passed. But the Giants and the Cardinals played a baseball game as well. The Giants' rough road trip continues. They lose 2 out of 3 to the Chicago Cubs at Wrigley Field, a team that for the better part of the last month has looked like it's going nowhere, and they have an opportunity against the St. Louis Cardinals tonight, and they let it pass them by. Keaton Wynn struggles. They lose 6-5. They get the 3-run home run from Elliot Ramos. But again, too little, too late for this Giants lineup, which, of course, it did its job. It scored 5 runs. It's the pitching staff that is, of course, the main concern right now. So we're going to get into all of it. If you've got thoughts on what transpired at Rickwood Field tonight, on the way that they honored the life and the legacy of Willie Mays, I would love to hear those. If you want to just simply talk Giants baseball, I am here for you to talk about the struggles of this team right now, the struggles of the likes of Michael Conforto and other players who are bringing down this Giants lineup at the moment. It's been a really rough month of June for the San Francisco Giants, and having Conforto in the middle of the order with 2 groundouts, 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts tonight, that was really rough for this team. So whatever you want to get into, 415-808-KNBR is the number. At the outset of the show, I do just want to acknowledge that this has been a really heavy week for a lot of members of the Giants organization, for members of the Giants team. Of course, going to Rickwood Field and seeing Willie Mays, who many Giants players did have the opportunity to meet during their tenure with the team, seeing the way that Mays was honored, it has to be heavy. It has to be heavy on the heart, understanding what he means to so many people in the organization. Of course, everyone here at KNBR, everyone who's called in this week, everyone who's out on the roads and thinking about Willie, just so honored and appreciative of the stories that you've shared with us this week. I think back to last night. We took 2 hours of calls to start off our 3-hour show, and we heard from so many different people whose lives were touched by Willie Mays and who became baseball fans because of Willie Mays, and watching him play at Candlestick Park and falling in love with his style and his grace and his flair on the field. And of course, those of you who didn't get the chance to watch Willie Mays play and patrol center field like myself, we've had the stories of Mays passed down to us through the years, and tonight, once again, we saw Mays celebrated in maybe a way that he's never been celebrated before, going back to his home state in Alabama, not far from where he grew up there in Birmingham, where he played as a teenager for the Black Barons, 16, 17, 18 years old. We heard the story on the broadcast of Satchel Paige facing Willie Mays. Just some remarkable moments. So I do want to start with just acknowledging that this has been a really heavy week, and I appreciate everyone who's called in to share their stories about Mays, who's thought about Mays and grieved with us as we've celebrated the life of Willie Mays, the greatest to ever do it. And I think with that, I certainly understand that a lot of people want to talk about this team. A lot of people want to talk about this game. A lot of people want to talk about the struggles of the San Francisco Giants right now. So we're going to get into that. We're going to head out to Peter in San Jose. Peter in San Jose, you're on Sports Phone. Peter, how are you this evening?
How you doing, Kerry? I just wanted to start with something positive. Yeah, first off, I got to go to Wrigley Field. First time ever in the Midwest. Beautiful. It's just like breathtaking.
Oh, it's amazing.
Kind of like baseball Disneyland, and it was kind of like surreal, even though it was very sad, but also, like you said, it's a celebration of life for Willie Mays. We knew he wasn't doing that well. He was with a caretaker. But it was so cool to see so many people on the internet and all that stuff, famous celebrities, non-sport celebrities like Spike Lee. You got actors and singers, and giving a tribute to a guy that's our guy. He's baseball's guy, but he's first and foremost a San Francisco Giant and New York Giant.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really cool to see all that, and kind of surreal that it happened at Wrigley Field while the Giants were playing at Wrigley Field, which is one of the 3 parks he's played in. So, yeah, that was great. And I like how the Wrigley Field fans, which are super friendly, gave him a standing. It was supposed to be a moment of silence, but they gave him a standing ovation. Some people were like, "What happened to the moment of silence?" But it's fitting. I think he would have wanted a standing ovation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was a joyous person. His joy was infectious. It touched so many lives, and I think you're right on that. You know, his son Michael tonight, before tonight's game at Rickwood Field, he encouraged everyone to chant Willie's name, and I thought that was a really special moment as well. And you're absolutely right. That is the way to honor someone who lived their life the way that Willie lived his. Great, and well said, Peter.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to comment a little bit on the struggles, but I didn't want to just get into it right away. But
yeah,
I just think the two biggest things that I think bother me, and it's organizational, is something we've seen this year that's just been horrible, is that the lack of stealing bases paired with we just can't hold runners on. We have a phenomenal catcher, and they just run wild. It's just the coaching it looks like a double-A team holding guys on base, like a little.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just it's like the worst, and it's not even close. And that's the funny thing is you have a Gold Glove caliber catcher, and he can't do anything about it. He's frustrated. You can see him in between innings, and it's like this is on the coaches. We have a million coaches. How come we not fix this, and how come we're gluing guys to bases? We didn't run that much with Kapler, but Tyro had 20-something stolen bases. Like, I just don't get it. I don't get why we don't steal it all, and why every single team. The other day they scored the winning run. The guy had one stolen base, and he steals the base and scores the winning. It's costing them games.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Peter, thank you for the call. We got a number of people to get to here, but I do want to say it kind of stunned me in the ninth inning that against one of the best closers in all of baseball, after Trenton Brooks draws that leadoff walk and gets on base, that you have Tyler Fitzgerald, who is one of the fastest players in the game, and you don't have him go at any point during those few at-bats there in a one-run ball game to put pressure on the Cardinals, understanding that would be your opportunity to, hey, one base hit gets you back in the game. Patrick Bailey, he gets that base hit, and so it's confounding to me why the Giants didn't have Tyler Fitzgerald try to go there. I just thought that was a huge missed opportunity for this team in a one-run ball game where they really could have put pressure on a guy who'd saved 24 consecutive games coming into that. That just didn't add up, didn't make sense to me. Let's go to Nikki in Sunnyvale. Nikki in Sunnyvale, you're on Sports Zone. Nikki, how are you this evening?
Good. I just wanted to know if you thought that, to be honest, it was not really surprising that we lost. Because, to be honest, I always had a feeling we would lose only because, while it would have been great, a storybook ending, a Hollywood ending, we're not that type of team. I mean, we don't steal or mediocre. I mean, was it really a shock that we couldn't do this for Willie Mays, as messed up as it is to say?
Yeah, Nikki, thank you for the call. Look, I always go by the day's starting pitcher, and I think that Keaton Winn has struggled a lot lately. And when I saw Keaton Winn in the first inning tonight, I didn't think that the Giants would have it in him. I think that Elliot Ramos getting them back in that game with a 3-run home run out to right field was huge. Ramos' 10th home run of the season deserves some praise and acknowledgement tonight, but Keaton Winn has not been good enough for this team. The rotation has completely fallen apart for this team, and that's on Farhan Zaidi and the roster assembly. It's on the organization as a whole for not having the depth necessary in terms of guys who can come up and make starts for this team and get through 5 solid innings. And you're just putting your bullpen in a compromised position. So when you have to continually run guys out there, like a Randy Rodriguez tonight who had to go out there and soak up some innings, I don't know that Randy Rodriguez is going to be on the team on Saturday. He might be optioned back to AAA because he's had to soak up so many innings. Keaton Winn, unable to get through 3 tonight. He could be headed back to AAA Sacramento. The Giants just seem to have no answers for the spots in the rotation that aren't covered by Logan Webb, Jordan Hicks, and of course beforehand Kyle Harrison, but now he's on the injured list. And so it's just become some really, really difficult situations and difficult days. And so when you go out and Keaton Winn doesn't have it, that's not one that I think that you're going to win. Let's go to Fitz in Santa Cruz. Our friend Fitz in Santa Cruz, you're on Sports Phone. Fitz, how are you this evening?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
Always great when we hear your voice. What's on your mind tonight, Fitz?
Well, I want to start positive. I know, I'm calling again after a loss, but I don't want to hang up on that. Obviously, we lost a legend. One of the great things that I've enjoyed the last few days is just hearing so many stories about Willie how he touched people's lives, and even just people calling in, not even people that are, baseball players or in the profession, just people that he's run into at restaurants or at the store or at the ballpark. And it's just been really refreshing and nice as somebody that didn't get the chance to grow up and see him and, but knew of him, to just hear all these great stories.
Completely agree with that. It's been really touching, and it's been a privilege to sit here and hear those stories, Fitz. So I'm grateful you acknowledge that.
Yeah, and now to get to the negative stuff.
Yeah.
Defense has been horrific, and I mean, even just looking at Chapman, incredible player, but he's got 10 errors so far. He hasn't had 12 or more his entire career. So I mean, we're in June and he's got 10 already. So I mean, that in and of itself, and it just the way the season's gone, I've talked about it, other callers have talked about it. It just seems like every time we get that glimmer of hope where it's like, oh, the season might be turning around to where we thought it was going to be, the rug gets pulled out.
Exactly. Way too frequently.
Like,
anytime they get close to 500, they lose. Anytime they're within a game, it's not just a loss too, it's another losing streak that puts them in this hole. And it's like they just refuse to take advantage of the mediocrity in the National League right now.
Yeah, and I mean, if you had told me this time of the season that we would just be chasing and hoping for 500 based on all the off-season moves and everything, I would have said no. We should be at least a few games over 500 and doing a little bit better than that. But here we are.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Fitz. Thank you for the call. Appreciate your thoughts as always, especially willingness to call in after a loss and kind of sound off, because I think the same thing. It is interesting to me. Matt Chapman did commit 20 errors in 2018 when he won his first Gold Glove with the Oakland A's. He's got 10 right now, as Fitz mentioned. But you look around other spots on the diamond, the Giants were supposed to be, coming into this season, more athletic, better on defense, maybe more aggressive. We have not seen that version of this team. And yes, they've changed the players, but they look awfully similar to a club that went 79 and 83 last year, and that is unacceptable. Let's go to John in Santa Rosa. John in Santa Rosa, you're on Sports Phone. John, how you doing this evening?
Gary, very frustrated. I agree with you 100% on everything you said. First of all, I don't want to see Keaton Wynn on the mound again for a long time. Keaton Wynn is not the answer in the rotation at all. I feel sorry for the guy. I know our starting pitching it's a shambles right now, but Keaton Wynn is not going to lead us anywhere. He did not have it tonight. He hasn't looked good in quite a while. I know there's a lot of pressure on these guys now because, their starting rotation, like I say, is a joke. But Kerry, one other thing, I hate to say it, but I see a 1-5 road trip staring us right in the face. I don't know how we win.
That'd be brutal.
2 games again this weekend in St. Louis. I'm not even sure who's pitching Saturday and Sunday. Do we even know yet?
I know you got Webb on Sunday. Giants are set up there, and that should be fine. They've got their best pitcher on the mound. I don't know yet who's Saturday. Oh, it's Hicks. It's Hicks on Saturday. So, look, it's Miles Mikolas and Jordan Hicks. I don't see 1-5. I feel like the Giants at least get one of those 2 games. So, if they don't, though, then what's next week look like? I think that's the problem right now, John, is like if they don't win every Hicks and Webb start, it's just disastrous for them because they can't win the other starts right now.
You're absolutely right. And you can't put that kind of pressure on Hicks and Webb to go out there and carry this rotation right now. That's not fair on them. I mean, that's the only 2 guys you can really count on. And you're right. Real quick, this roster construction, it was not put together. It's like last year, like you said. It's like looking in the mirror. We're old, we're slow. We got no speed, we got no defense. I mean, it's a joke.
Yeah, it's too similar to last year. Thank you for the call, John. Appreciate your thoughts. It's too similar in terms of the overall product. Giants have changed players. They've changed managers. In theory, they've changed philosophies, a lot of different coaches this year. But the Giants are now 76 games into a 162-game season. They're 36-40, and they are trending toward the same place they finished last year, which is under 500 and out of a playoff spot. It's unacceptable. In a National League that's pervasive with mediocrity, the Giants have failed to take advantage of that. And this week particularly, with 3 very winnable games against the Cubs and the Cardinals now, and they've lost those games. And so here they sit on the other side. We're going to chat with KNBR's own Jack Loader. on the digital team. Jack does a great job, has been a great guest on Sports Phone for us over the last few weeks. Get some Giants insights on tonight's game from him. You're listening to Sports Phone KNBR. Kerry Crowley hanging with you until 9 o'clock this evening. KNBR 104.5, 680, the Sports Leader.
is Sports Phone KNBR. Dial the digits or send us a text at 415-808-KNBR. We're streaming on YouTube all damn day at KNBR 1045.
For one. Curve, and he hits a high fly ball to right. Carrying pretty well. Burleson back at the wall, and it is gone! Elliot Ramos just skied one out to right field, and that ties this game. His 10th home run of the year.
And he does a little shimmy around third. Let the beast cook.
Well, Elliot Ramos hit a 3-run home run, but the Giants did not have enough magic tonight at Rickwood Field. They fall 6-5 to the St. Louis Cardinals. They drop to 36-40 on the season. Here to help us break down tonight's ball game, our friend from the KNBR Digital Squad, Jack Loader. Jack, back on Sports Phone. How are you this evening?
Hey, Kerry. Thanks for having me on again. Another week of kind of much of the same from this Giants team, culminating in a pretty disappointing loss, which we've become kind of sadly accustomed to. So we've got a lot to break down here in a short period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciate you coming on and joining us and talking about this ball game and really about the last week of Giants baseball because, Jack, this is a team that, to me, you look around the National League and there are so many other mediocre squads. The Giants saw the Cubs, who, of course, the bottom has fallen out from under them in the last month. They now see the Cardinals, who played better baseball, but they're still just 500, and yet the Giants can't seem to take advantage of the fact that everyone else in the National League, besides the Phillies and the Dodgers, is very much a beatable team.
Yeah, and we've all seen the screenshots of this congested clump of mediocrity in the National League wildcard standings, and you kind of said it, like, outside of the division leaders, there's not a whole lot of teams to separate themselves playing really good baseball, and despite the Giants' kind of omnipresent contention in that group, it doesn't really seem to be inspiring this group. It seems like every time they have a disappointing loss, someone will point out, hey, they're only a game and a half out of this playoff spot, and maybe as they come down the stretch, that'll move the needle, but right now it seems to be not, and that's kind of the reality of today's Major League Baseball scene in this expanded playoff format.
Yeah, it really is. Giants 36-40 right now through 76 games on the season. Obviously, you've got a lot of baseball left to be played, but you can't really be inspired by what you've seen thus far from this squad. Jack, this Giants team has dealt with a lot of injuries. It came up on the TV broadcast tonight. Yaz goes out with the injury right now, and it just feels as though the roster construction and the number of veteran players they have, Bob Melvin has dealt with a lot in his career and bringing, talent from AAA up to the Major League level and helping integrate them into the majors and helping them succeed. But there's been so many moving pieces this year that it's been hard for this Giants team to even craft an identity.
Yeah, and it's a unique combination of kind of freak injuries, like, for example, getting hit by a pitch, or kind of wear and tear injuries that have been nagging at guys for a lot of their career. So I don't know if you can blame it as much on the roster construction. It's just a lot of bad luck. And a number of times during this first half of the season, I found myself ready to rip Bob Melvin, pitchforks and torches coming to Bob Melvin's office. And then I kind of remember that the Giants clubhouse has almost doubled as something of a hospital wing. Position players, pitchers, you name it. The trainer, Dave Greshner, better be making some overtime because it seems like he's on the field dealing with an injury every other game. It looks like, I think a few weeks ago when I was on with you, Kerry, I said this team's injury report kind of resembles that of a football roster. Mm-hmm. And it's getting ridiculous. You got Lamont Wade, who was such a big loss. Kyle Harrison last week, which was seemingly out of nowhere. Seems like it's a short stint, but still a blow to the rotation. So no one is exempt from this injury bug that has plagued this Giants roster throughout the first half.
Yeah, and I think the bottom line is it's on a president of baseball operations. It's on an ownership group, and really it's on a manager and coaching staff to make sure that you have enough players coming into the season prepared to take down innings. And I don't know that the Giants were set up for that. They were very much counting on Blake Snell to give them a full season of 30 starts once he got ramped up, and it's not going to be anywhere close to that. They were very much counting on Alex Cobb coming back from the injured list before May 28th or whatever, because, he's someone who was not placed on the 60-day IL initially. And you see Keaton Winn take the mound tonight, Jack, and he was someone who the Giants had penciled into a rotation spot at the beginning of the year. And it's just hard to fathom what this rotation has become, and really hard to even project what it will be because there's so many question marks about the guys who are slated to come back.
Yeah, you want to have 3 or 4 solid, definitely can count on guys in your starting rotation. It seems like the Giants, for even the last year and a half, they go back to last season, have had 1 to 2. And I think that's a good point when it comes to the roster construction, because injuries are a part of the game, but the lack of depth on the 40-man roster has really been exposed in the early part of this summer. I mean, Trenton Brooks is a great story, right? He's a career minor leaguer. I'm happy for him that he's got to the big leagues. I think it's apparent to anyone who's watched enough of his game this year that he's not a big league player. And frankly, I'm getting a little tired of seeing him take leverage at bats. And I know that that's part of the reason that he is getting in these spots is because of these injuries, but it's on Farhan Zaidi at the bottom line to make some moves, get more depth in the 40-man. It's on the Giants player development too. Get some younger guys up. If so many draft picks, high draft picks, hadn't been struggling in the minor leagues or just full on busting, then this problem would be probably a lot less severe.
Absolutely. Jack Loader, the KNBR digital team, covers the Giants, covers all Bay Area sports for us here at the Leader, joining us on Sports Phone right now. And Jack, something that's been on my mind since watching the ninth inning, and something that is clearly on the minds of our callers who kicked off tonight's show, our texters as well. We're still getting thoughts on this. Trenton Brooks gets on against Ryan Helsley. You send in Tyler Fitzgerald, who's theoretically on the roster today, for one thing, and that's to steal a base, to use his speed in the late innings. Why did Tyler Fitzgerald, what's going on? Why are they not sending him there?
It's almost, and then they didn't send him for the rest of the inning, and then he finally attempted to steal on an 0-2 count with 2 outs, which was almost insulting as a viewer. I'd almost rather he just stayed put for the whole inning there. We've waited until there's 2 strikes with 2 outs when Tyler Fitzgerald came in to run for Trenton Brooks as a runner on first with nobody out. I don't understand the lack of aggressiveness on the base pass. It seems like it's kind of an organizational philosophy type thing. But a lot of the time this year, the Giants have been getting run on by opposing teams because the pitchers have been really struggling to hold guys on, and they're not kind of returning the favor with any sort of comparable aggressiveness on the base pass. Added to the laundry list of things that have just been really, really frustrating for this fan base.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we're going to continue to hear about that one this evening. So a week ago, we're sitting here talking on Sports Phone, and we're discussing a Giants team that just come off a few series wins and may have been feeling pretty good about itself after beating the Astros at Oracle Park. And we're saying, okay, who could they add at the deadline? Who could they bring into this mix right now? And now it's even hard to ask that question, even though they're only a game and a half out in this wild card chase, believe it or not, at 36-40. But do you see any possible moves Farhan could make at the trade deadline, whether it's adding or subtracting? What do you think the philosophy should be for this front office right now?
The trade deadline conundrum is an interesting one because the Giants brass has kind of put themselves in a catch-22 by firing Gabe Kapler and keeping Farhan Zaidi in what is kind of perceived to be a do-or-die year, right? Because now there seems to be kind of a conflict of interest. If Farhan Zaidi sells at the deadline, which may be the best move for the Giants, right, organizationally, he's probably walking the plank on his own job.
Yeah.
But if he kind of thinks, hey, if I buy and kind of preserve my spot here, that could be a poor thing long-term for the Giants. So they put themselves in this kind of middle ground where they allow Farhan Zaidi to be a part of this head coaching search while kind of acknowledging that he's sort of the lame duck or almost a, trial run GM, president of baseball operations, has made things really probably uncomfortable at the deadline. And you're right, Kerry, when we talked a week ago, we were circling some targets the Giants could target in the deadline to bring on to help this team. And what I've seen since then is nothing super inspiring. I think I said to you, got to take 2 out of 3 from the Angels, maybe sweep. That was last weekend at home.
Yeah.
What the Giants do, they dropped the first 2 in really just lazy, kind of sad, uninspiring fashion. Salvaged the last game on Sunday. But if you're a contending team, you have to win series against the bottom barrel of the major league teams at home on these summer weekend series that can be huge in catalyzing a fan base. And the Giants have done far from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you compound an Angels loss by going to Wrigley Field against a Cubs team that was playing bad baseball and looking horrific against Kyle Hendricks this week.
Baseball. They can't hit and they can't pitch.
Yeah, and Kyle Hendricks, I mean, his ERA was above 8 when he faced the Giants, and they turned back the clock. It was turn back the clock day for Kyle Hendricks. It's unacceptable.
Right.
And so now they put themselves in a position where, Jordan Hicks is pitching Saturday, Logan Webb's pitching Sunday, Jack. The Giants need to win on those 2 days because for the next 2 weeks, until Kyle Harrison returns from the injured list, until they get Blake Snell back from the injured list, it's going to be really difficult for them to win these bullpen games because they've stretched these long relief arms so much so that you're just going to see churn at the back of the roster, I think.
Yeah, and the bullpen games, we saw it last year with Kapler. We as Giants fans and pundits, I'm sure, on your end, lamented the excessive bullpen games, the over-managing of games, kind of the the robot management style. Like I said, we have to acknowledge that Bob Melvin is doing a lot of that because it's necessary with injuries. But the depth of this pitching staff, especially on the starting end, is really concerning because, like we saw last August and September, the bullpen is going to become burnt out if you're making them cover long innings all summer long. So it's imperative that Harrison get healthy, Snell get healthy. The question marks that are Alex Cobb and Robbie Ray really contribute because things are going to get really thin come the dog days of August when your arms are this taxed out in the bullpen. And the Giants bullpen, as much as it was maligned in the first couple months of the season, I know I talked about this last week too, this has been a really strong group. I think the strong point of this team in the month of June for sure. Camilo Duvall had a terrible outing the other day, but he redeemed himself with a great closing performance in that first game at Wrigley. Sean Jelly, we've talked about him at length, has been awesome. And both Rogers, especially Tyler, as much as I talk about being uncomfortable and Tyler Rogers is on the mound just because of the nature of the way he pitches, he has undeniably put up really good numbers. But that is put in jeopardy and down the stretch of the season when these guys are having to cover big innings from the third or fourth inning on throughout the summer.
Yeah, very well said. So let's get to this, Jack. There's two outfielders trending in very different directions right now, or two big bats. I can't say that Jorge Soler plays the outfield for the San Francisco Giants. You wouldn't want him out there, but he's a big part of the middle of the order, and in the month of June, he has finally turned it on. You saw it again tonight. He almost homered at Rickwood Field. On the other hand, Michael Conforto, having one of the worst months of any player in recent Giants memory. I think that, on the one hand, you've got Soler going. That's exactly what the Giants envisioned for this club. Right now, Conforto's play, I think it's very much of the case that you could just bring Luis Matos up and make Conforto a bench guy if you really needed to right now because he's contributing next to nothing at the plate.
Yeah, I'll start with Soler. Let's start with the good news, and I think we need to start with good news about Soler because I haven't been able to say that at all throughout the first almost 3 months of this season. The start to his Giants tenure was about as bad as it gets, and the bright side of that is there's really nowhere to go but up from that kind of rock bottom. And slowly but surely, we're starting to see him climb out of this. And obviously, he's hit a few mammoth homers in the last couple of weeks that are kind of obvious blips on that radar. But we're really seeing his quality at bat start to increase. He's taking more walks, overall seeing more pitches. His chase rate has gotten a ton better. And as the results improve, I think so will the overall swagger and confidence. I know a lot of the Spanish-speaking players in the Giants locker room have cited him as a leader and someone they really look up to. And I think as much as he was maintaining that role, even when he was struggling, because he is a consummate pro, that can only be improved when he's also producing at the plate and not dealing with his own kind of mental demons. So I can't overstate how important it is that Jorge Soler is starting to produce for the fans, for the clubhouse, for a really probably relieved Bob Melvin, who was writing him into the lineup every day. So love it for Soler. And then on the Conforto side of things, what's really unfortunate about this is before Conforto was one of those guys who has had a not insignificant stay on the IL this year. And before that stint, he was probably the Giants' best hitter in the early part of the season. He had an awesome April. And to see him kind of lose that momentum when he was injured is so disheartening because of how good he started and how you mentioned his June has been really dismal. And I kind of agree, especially with the way Luis Matos has torn up AAA since he was controversially demoted earlier in the month. The clock's ticking on Michael Conforto. It's unfortunate because of how well he started, but this is a results-based business. And when you're performing as poorly as Conforto is at the big league level, and you have a guy that has big league reps and has shown he can produce, who is tearing it up in AAA and kind of a send you down, show me type of situation, I think Conforto's days are numbered in the fact that Luis Matos is knocking at that door, and the Giants really can't afford tread water, or not even tread water, honestly, slowly sink any longer at those positions.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack Loader on the UMA guest line. We appreciate your thoughts, your perspective, as always, on the San Francisco Giants, and we'll do this again next week. Really appreciate it.
Look forward to it. I'll talk to you next week, Kerry.
All right, he is Jack Loader. He's brought so much to the show, really, in the last 2 months since he joined the KNBR digital team. Really great insight, perspective, and I look forward to reading Jack on KNBR.com, as you should as well. So 415-808-KNBR is the number if you have any more thoughts on tonight's ball game, on the ceremonies at Rickwood Field, on the way that Willie Mays and other Negro Leagues players were honored this evening. Would love to hear those. If you have thoughts on the Giants as a ball club, on your frustrations with this team after its third consecutive loss, to an NL Central club. Let's hear those as well on the other side. You're listening to Sports on KNBR. Kerry Crowley rolling with you until 9 o'clock here on KNBR 104.5, 680, the Sports Leader.
Sound off on the sports leader. Sports phone KNBR keeps rolling right here, and on the all-new KNBR app.
Here's the windup. Here's the pitch. Splitter struck him out swinging. Crawford, for the first time playing against the Giants, and for the first time for anybody or against anybody, playing third base today.
All right, we are back here on Sports Phone KNBR. Kerry Crowley rolling with you until 9 o'clock this evening. Your thoughts on the San Francisco Giants, if you have anything based off of tonight's game, based off of tonight's broadcast, we'd love to hear from you this evening. It's been a heavy week around the Bay Area, and I'm going to address that in the final segment, talking about Willie Mays, talking about the way that Negro Leagues players were honored tonight at Rickwood Field in Birmingham. I've been so fortunate to hear from folks who've been down in Birmingham this week, explaining all that they've learned. We had Marty Lurie on Tuesday evening talking about his experience, and that was really, really important because he's getting the firsthand look. And look, Reggie Jackson, I'll talk about Reggie in our final segment, but I think that he shed a light on the pain that comes with going back to Rickwood Field earlier this evening, and that is, you can look at tonight's ball game, 6-5 Cardinals win over the Giants, but tonight was about so much more than just a baseball game that counts in the year 2024. Tonight was about learning about baseball in America, and both the good and the bad, of course. So we'll touch on that in our final segment, but I do want to take a quick spin around Major League Baseball right now. Top of the seventh inning in San Diego, where the Padres lead the Brewers 5-3 right now. The Padres have fallen under 500. They're 38-40, and so the Giants still in this wide open National League West, but still sitting in fourth place because they can't take advantage of a team like the Cubs, the Angels, and now the St. Louis Cardinals. Final in our nation's capital this evening, where the Arizona Diamondbacks improved to 37-38 with a 5-2 victory over the Washington Nationals. Mackenzie Gore takes the loss in that one for the Nationals. Paul Sewald gets the save for Arizona, his 8th of the season. Final in Cleveland tonight, where Stephen Vogt's Guardians 46-26. They beat the Seattle Mariners 6-3. Allen gets the win. Clase gets the save in that one. And Luis Castillo, former Giants prospect, takes the loss for Seattle, which, by the way, 11 games over 500, the Seattle Mariners right now. Final in 10 innings in Minnesota, where the Tampa Bay Rays defeated the Minnesota Twins 7-6. The Rays, 36-39 right now. The Twins fall to 7 games over 500. That one decided late, of course. Peter Fairbanks gets the win for Tampa. Final in Chicago this evening, where the Houston Astros improved to 35-40 with a 5-3 win over the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox 20-56 on the season. Just unfathomable how bad that ball club is. Final in Colorado today, where the Dodgers defeated the Rockies 5-3. Gavin Stone gets the win in that one. The rookie, a 3.04 ERA. Evan Phillips with his 12th save of the season. And former Giant, forever Giant, Ty Block takes the loss for Colorado. He's 3-5 with a 5.13 ERA on the season for Colorado. Final in Oakland this evening, where the Kansas City Royals defeated the A's 3-2 earlier today. Stratton gets the save in that one for Kansas City. And then our other final from today, the Orioles beat the Yankees 17-5 at Yankee Stadium. Brian Baker gets the win in that one. Luis Gil takes the loss for New York. He's 9-2 with a 2.77 ERA. Maybe the American League Rookie of the Year frontrunner in that one. So with that, let's head out to Kurt in Napa. Kurt in Napa, I think we've got time for one final call. So let's take you this evening. Kurt, how are you this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. I just a quick comment, but the Giants can pretty much get anybody. At the top of the lineup, you got a 296, a 307, a 299, and everybody else is at 227. If you just replaced 6 batters with a 250, you'd be scoring runs and winning games like no tomorrow.
Yeah, the issue is the average major league average right now. So the median average is like 238. Good hitters in Major League Baseball are 250 now. So we need to completely reframe the way we look at this team. But Kurt, you're absolutely right that the bottom of the order, past number 3, is not producing at all for the Giants.
No, and I mean, you're far enough into the season, I don't see how they're going to get better. If everybody's getting 238, you're talking 10 points better on all of these people in the bottom of your order. That's not going to help you.
Yeah. I think you bring up Luis Matos, especially if Mike Yastrzemski goes to the injured list here. You just play him every single day. And he might be a 220 hitter this year, but he's 22 years old. You bring up Marco Luciano, he might be a 200 hitter this year, but he's 22 years old. You at least give these guys who might be a part of your future the opportunity to prove that they can be, because the guys who've been given the chance to get things done, 76 games in, they haven't gotten things done.
Yeah, exactly. All those guys that came up, that's when they won all those games. And they just put a lot of life into the lineup, and they were all playing together well, and the defense was better, and they could steal a base, and you just don't have anything right now,
Yeah, it's really tough. It's a tough team to watch. And look, we're talking about the lineup that scored 5 runs on Wednesday, 5 runs on Wednesday in Chicago, 5 runs today against the Cardinals. But it's this pitching staff that I think is really crushing them, all the injuries that have happened. So, Kurt, thank you for the call. Appreciate your thoughts this evening. And I think you speak for a lot of frustrated Giants fans who've watched this team over the last 7-10 days have big opportunities against the Angels, against the Cubs, against now the Cardinals, and they've squandered them. It's unacceptable. It's bad baseball. And at some point, you have to think about major changes in the organization, to the roster, to the philosophy, because mediocrity has been the standard for far too long for the San Francisco Giants now. And the sample size is meaningful. You're 76 games into this season, and this is not a team that has proven it can hover above 500. It's been at 500, but for most of the season, it's been below 500, and that simply isn't good enough. On the other side, I do want to talk about the festivities around tonight's ball game at Rickwood Field, honoring and celebrating the life of Willie Mays, and of course, all the Negro Leagues players who were in attendance this evening as well at Rickwood Field. A very special evening that was about so much more than just one baseball game in the year 2024. I'm Kerry Crowley, the show Sports Zone KNBR. You're listening to KNBR 104.5 680, the Sports Leader.
Speak your mind on the sports leader. Sports Phone KNBR keeps coming at you. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the sports leader.
All right, we are back here on Sports Phone KNBR. Kerry Crowley finishing up tonight's show as the Giants lose 6-5 at Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Alabama. It was not the storybook finish that so many Giants fans envisioned at the start of the afternoon as the festivities began and honoring Willie Mays and honoring all the Negro Leagues legends who came through. Just a sensational ballpark, and a ballpark that's steeped in American history. And as we heard Reggie Jackson on the pregame show, obviously a lot of bad history as well. And I think it's important to note that and important to discuss that, but also very important to celebrate what took place tonight, even though the San Francisco Giants lose 6-5 and they've now fallen to 36-40 on the season, 4 games under 500. I think tonight and this week is one of those that I personally will never forget. It's been a privilege to be on the airwaves here at KNBR with all of you as we've grieved the loss of the greatest baseball player to ever do it in Willie Mays. And we've celebrated the life of someone who brought so much joy to so many people, but specifically in San Francisco, in the Bay Area, and of course the Giants fans back in New York. You know, there's still the Polo Grounds folks, the folks who watched Willie Mays growing up as kids, who get together and reminisce about their childhood stories of seeing just an absolute hero, a legend, and an American icon. And I get chills thinking about all of the calls that we've had this week on Sports Phone. I get chills thinking about all the memories that folks have with Willie Mays and the impact that he had on their lives and really on American society. And tonight we were able to see that play out at Rickwood Field in Birmingham. I thought that, you know, from the pregame show moving forward, Fox and the broadcast crew did an outstanding job paying tribute to not just Mays, who of course was such a central focus of tonight and would have been even if he was still with us right now, but to all of the Negro Leagues players who endured so much in playing at a time when Birmingham, Alabama was not kind to them. In fact, there were heinous acts. The Sheriff Bull Connor, of course, we had Marty Lurie on earlier this week to detail all that he'd learned in Birmingham this week. And Reggie Jackson on tonight's pregame show really spoke the truth. And he was asked about going back to Rickwood Field and his emotions about it and how difficult it was for him. That's really what he pointed to, is saying that he wouldn't wish it on anyone. And I encourage, I'm sure most of you have heard it by now. It's all over social media. It's all over the internet. But I would encourage anyone who hasn't listened to Reggie Jackson during tonight's pregame show to go listen to one of the greatest baseball players, one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen, and to hear the words, how he wouldn't wish that experience on anyone, and to think that this wasn't long ago that this was happening. And that's why I think that tonight is so important, and that this game was so important, that Major League Baseball officially acknowledging Negro League stats is so important. And, you know, making something like tonight happen, making the celebration of Willie Mays happen, making the celebration of the Negro Leagues players happen, but also having the hard conversations that Reggie Jackson had, because you can't tell the story of the Negro Leagues and tell it without understanding the prejudice and racism that those players faced on a daily basis. Any town that they traveled to, any ballpark that they played in, any city that they were living in, they endured hardship that's just beyond comprehension for someone like myself. And to hear Reggie tonight, it was gut-wrenching. It was heartbreaking, and it was a reminder that this history, while it happened long ago, is not all that distant. And Reggie, we're so fortunate that he spoke those words that he did. We're so fortunate that we had all of the memorable moments that we did tonight throughout tonight's TV broadcast. I know that Dave and John and Hunter did a great job on the radio documenting everything from Rickwood Field, this once-in-a-lifetime experience for members of the San Francisco Giants organization to go back to the ballpark that Willie Mays played in as a teenager and to understand where the greatest player of all time came from, and to see the history acknowledged tonight. It really was something that I'll never forget. And I know that the Giants lose 6-5. We've talked about the struggles that they're enduring on the field, but there are so many reasons that we're all baseball fans, and so many reasons I think that we watch this sport 162 times a season, or as much as we possibly can every single year. And I go back to this. I mentioned this a lot during last night's show, during our celebration of life of Willie Mays, and it is that when the Giants moved west in 1958 from the Polo Grounds out to Seal Stadium in San Francisco and then to Candlestick Park, Willie Mays is the player who transformed a city and transformed a region in Northern California into a region that was obsessed and crazed with baseball. Willie Mays and his talents on the field were must-see in an era where we didn't have social media, where games weren't televised, and you'd only listen on the radio or go out to Candlestick Park and see him in person. Willie Mays was that consistent because there were so many players during that time period of the 50s, 60s, 70s, early 80s where they were great. They put up all-time numbers. They put up these sensational marks, but they don't have the legends and the stories passed down about them like Willie. And you have to be so consistently good that everyone who came to the ballpark to see you, whether it be once, whether it be 100 times, or whether it be somewhere in the middle, everyone who came to the ballpark to see you, they wanted to tell a story about watching you play because Willie played the game with such grace and eloquence, but also he played the game with such competitiveness. And he played so hard. You see these clips, these black and white clips of Willie running the bases from first to third, of taking the extra base on a single into the outfield and turning it into a double. You see him ripping the ball into the bleachers at Candlestick Park, and you understand why. You understand why you are a San Francisco Giants fan today. You understand why he had such a profound impact, and it's because someone in your life passed along that love of the San Francisco Giants to you, or if you're one of the members of our audience tonight who was out at Candlestick Park, who's called in to share a story about Willie Mays, I just think we are so grateful that you can pass along those stories to us, to those of us who never did see Willie play, understanding the last time he did was 1973 in a New York Mets uniform out at the Coliseum in Oakland. Can you believe it? And I just am so grateful for everyone who shared their memories this week. I was watching tonight's pregame show and really did have tears in my eyes thinking about all that we've learned this week, all that we've had the opportunity to experience this week, and all because of Willie Mays and the profound impact that he had on a generation and the generations that follow. He is a true American icon, and I'm so grateful. I think about, what transpired at Rickwood Field tonight, and you saw the all-black umpire crew, and it was the first all-black umpire crew in Major League Baseball, and they were honoring the first black umpire in MLB, Emmett Ashford. It was amazing to see that crew come together and celebrate and understand the significance of their achievements. You saw the Giants in their San Francisco Sea Lions jerseys, of course, purchased from the semi-pro barnstorming team, the San Francisco Cubs, and understand why they were wearing those jerseys. You saw the Cardinals in their St. Louis Stars uniforms, the team where Cool Papa Bell starred and Oscar Charleston played for the St. Louis Negro Leagues team back when they were the St. Louis Giants. The performance of Lift Every Voice and Sing tonight, and Lamont Wade Jr. taking out the lineup card, and the game that he so desperately wanted to play in. I mean, Lamont has had this game circled on his calendar. The Giants and Bob Melvin petitioned Major League Baseball to suspend the rule and allow him to be the 27th player on the roster today, and I so wish that was made possible. As I mentioned, we saw greats on the pregame show, from Reggie Jackson to San Francisco's own Barry Bonds. And, of course, Bonds with the moment on the pregame show talking about Satchel Paige and how he'd take him deep, and getting Derek Jeter and Ken Griffey Jr. and Big Papi and Alex Rodriguez all to laugh in that moment. And tonight meant so much to Bonds. It was very clear. The photo and videos taken before the game, he was standing near Rob Manfred, and there's absolutely a place in Major League Baseball for Barry Bonds, and I believe there's a place in the Hall of Fame for Barry Bonds, and that's a discussion really for another day. But I think tonight was all about celebrating people that today we acknowledge as heroes, but in their time they had to fight just to earn respect and to earn basic human decency. I mean, the players of the Negro Leagues endured such challenges, hardships, and brutal racism, and that they were able to have that moment out there on the field pregame, I thought was really, really special, and it did It did move me. It moved me nearly to tears. I get chills right now thinking about it, because tonight was about so much more than the Giants and the Cardinals taking the field for a Major League Baseball game. Tonight was a celebration of history and also an education and learning experience for so many of us. And I think that, we who've grown up in the Bay Area and around Northern California and following the San Francisco Giants, however you came to this ball club, I think that we're so blessed that Willie Mays donned this uniform and that he was such a tremendous ambassador for the team, the franchise, the ballparks that he played in, and of course, the ballpark at 24 Willie Mays Plaza as well, all the memories that he made out there watching Bonds and all the memories that he's made through the years at Oracle Park. Just sensational, and we are so indebted to him. And it's our duty to pass along the stories of Willie Mays. It's our duty to move forward from this evening talking about this experience, talking about learning about the Negro Leagues and what these players experienced, what they had to do to simply step foot on the baseball field and compete against one another. It is our duty to share those stories, to honor those players, and to move forward understanding the history, because we heard a lot of it tonight. Nearly half of the players in baseball's Hall of Fame have played at Rickwood Field, and you think about what that means to a Mike Yastrzemski, who was out there tonight, of course, left the game with an injury, but his grandfather, the Hall of Famer Carl Yastrzemski, had played at Rickwood. And you think about Reverend Bill Greason tonight, 99 years old, and talking about Willie Mays and how he was a determined young man who had the gifts and the talent. And, asking Ken Rosenthal at the end of the interview, did that help? Everything about what Bill Greason had to say tonight, the Reverend, everything helped paint the picture of what Mays experienced during his teenage years, during his formative years on a baseball diamond. And of course, hearing about Piper Davis from Bob Kendrick in the broadcast booth. These are all things that will never, ever go away from me. And I hope that, you took in that experience, whether you were listening here on KNBR, listening to John, Dave, and Hunter paint the picture from Birmingham, Alabama, or watching on television like myself. Or, you never know if you got a few people there in Birmingham who watch the game and are still listening tonight. But I hope that we all move forward, telling these stories, sharing the history, and honoring Willie moving forward, because that's what this week has always been about. It's been about celebrating Willie, and especially with the passing of Willie on Tuesday that hit so many of us so hard. We're so grateful for the life that he lived so much of it in a San Francisco Giants uniform, and it's our duty, it's our honor to move forward, sharing the stories of Willie Mays, the stories of the Negro Leagues, and the stories that make baseball the great game that it is today. I'm Kerry Crowley. This has been Sports Phone KNBR. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. You're listening to KNBR 104.5, 680, the Sports Leader.